We have a little Smashing Pumpkins today. We starting with Smashing Pumpkins.
We can start with Smashing Pumpkins. Sure, that's good. That's good. So,
So found out today that they're releasing this 3 disc opera musical,
hmm
a la like what? What is this like Meatloaf on
kind of,
steroids?
yeah, kind of, yeah. I mean, the most famous ones in rock and roll history are the ones that the Who did. The Tommy and Quadrophenia in the '70s, but um,
Ain't that?
obviously the most famous one in the modern world is Green Day's American Idiot. Um, is one too. But it's a very different feel from what little bit I've heard of the Smashing Pumpkins one too. This is called ATUM, ATUM. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Um, Definitely gonna do some more digging. Try to listen to the first 2 projects that just got released on Friday, but this is
mhm.
from the third project.
Yeah, I mean, are we doing Beguiled or are we doing the other one? They're very different songs. I mean, I don't know if you've heard both of them, but they're very different in
Hey,
feel to them. The Spellbinding song sounds much more like Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness era Smashing Pumpkins. It sounds kind of like it's a much more serene, chill sounding song. And this Beguiled song's a heavier industrial sounding thing. It's more in the like Depeche Mode
cool.
kind of vein. I heard Faith No More in there, Nine Inch Nails. I mean, there's those kinds of bands. Um, and that is a really like I guess you would call it a chunky guitar riff in Beguiled. Like it's very like I don't know.
Which record did you prefer? Did you prefer the classicer sounding Melancholy Sadness record, or did you prefer the Depeche Mode riff?
Um
Or Depeche Mode like
Depeche Mode. Yeah. Like it's I think the Spellbinding one is more in line with stuff that I like listening to. But I also have more notes on Beguiled too. So um
I think Beguiled's the better record.
you do. Okay.
I get what you're saying intrinsically, just about like, well, what I like to listen to,
Right.
and style wise, how this fits more into that Infinite
hmm
Melancholy Sadness mold.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that the execution on Beguiled is much better than the execution
Okay.
on Spell.
Tell me what you
Because
hear.
okay, well, let's kind of, since you have a lot of notes on Beguiled, more notes on that. I'll kind of take the spell binding part of it, and then we
Okay.
can kind of transition to Beguile.
Okay, cool.
And there's some of your notes, and we'll juxtapose it that way.
All right.
Spellbinding sounds something like to me that is literally one mishap or one step or one off riff away from being like the theme music for the next Stranger Things season.
Okay.
And
It's
I
like a
don't
Kate
mean
Bushy
that,
song.
yeah, and I don't mean
Right.
that in a good way. Right. It's like it's on that borderline where it's like that's almost corny, like
Hmm.
nostalgic corny.
Okay.
And you brought up the infinite melancholy sadness thought. It was like I was actually thinking this sound stylistic for me even predates that a little bit,
hmm
if I were to have to call it,
Okay.
but not in a good way in terms of their execution. Because when you bring up the infinite melancholy sadness, it's like, well, this isn't executed like those records were.
No, no. I mean, that's
None of
they
it came
were in their serious like pocket then for sure.
right. So none of that kind of came off as like a corny retro throwback. This kind of is on the verge of that.
Okay.
You, it almost has a they almost sound like on this record like a has been 80s rock band.
Oh. Mm.
Like it's almost in that territory.
Okay.
It's only because his voice is so distinctive and some
Yeah.
of the writing that is notably high level
Right.
is still there, is
hmm
literally saving the song, in my opinion.
Okay.
So
Like
it's like,
I've listened to like part of it once, so I haven't like because I pulled it up because I saw it was the newest single and started listening to it, and we were texting back and forth about which one we were going to do, and I thought you suggested Beguiled or you said something about Beguiled, so I stopped it and went on to the other one. So I have not listened to it fully. It does feel like today, like the Smashing Pumpkin song today. It has that kind of lilting thing. Um, most of the today is an outlier, a Smashing Pumpkin song from like that generation. From this comes from a record called Siamese Dream, and it's most of those are really, really like buzzy songs, like really a lot of feedback in the guitars, a lot of angst in the lyrics and that kind of thing. Um, and today has lots of angst in the lyrics, obviously, but it's kind of covered in a poppier sounding riff and a poppier
Mhm.
sounding
Mhm.
song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most Siamese Dream stuff doesn't sound like today.
And the
Um,
only reason I bought up Beguiled because it's like, well, I was like, well, do we totally want to cover this record? Because I would have felt like by covering just Spellbinding, it looks like we're covering both now, which is totally cool to me.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, learn on the fly. Um, but I was really like, you know, well, Beguiled's just a better song. So like, let's
Mhm.
maybe cover the better song, even though
Okay.
this song is newer. We're supposed to be doing a reaction. It was just something about it that's like, it's like Beguiled's better.
Mm. It's definitely heavier for sure. Like it's
I think just for me, and this is more of that outside looking in type of
hmm
pocket. I know them for their depth more, and that's maybe why
hmm
Spellbind didn't stick with me as well. It's like, oh, that's just it's a little bit more on the saccharine side for what I'm used to getting from you.
Okay. Yeah. It is much more in um po the post melancholy Smashing Pumpkins is very much like this. The Ava Adore songs and the songs that they play for soundtracks and those kind of songs that are like after melancholy,
And
which I say after melancholy like it was recently. That's like 1995. So it's I mean they've gotten heavier and more industrial as they've gone away from
but
there.
also they kind of got accused of selling out a little bit.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean about this song. It's like, well, you're like, well, this brings back Infinite Melancholy Sadness. It's like, no, no, no. The stuff they did after that didn't gravitate towards people like that because people kind of felt like once they hit it big with Infinite Melancholy Sadness that they kind of tapered down. It became more of a, I don't
Mm.
know if Tapestry Band is very
Yeah,
disrespectful.
they're not. I was surprised when you said you wanted to do this one instead of some of the other ones we suggested, just because Smashing Pumpkins are not. I don't want to like diss them because I mean they're a great band and an important band, but they're not part of the cultural zeitgeist really at all anymore. And I mean, people don't talk about this album release, even like they talked about the Metallica one. Um,
Well, that's part of why I picked it too. Is that I know that they're more of a niche group
yeah.
at this point, and you know we've been trying some different things on Mirror Music, so I want to see how some of our niches work.
Mm,
No, they're just more of a niche market at this point, but I want to see what their niche looks like too as they create
yeah.
new material. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things about us doing this show is that people that have followings, well, they pop up and call us on our stuff, and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
So this also is
I'm learning stuff too. Like,
yeah, learning stuff. This is kind of one of those litmus test choices too.
hmm
Yeah, where it's like, oh well, let's see how that did. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
So we can scope our vision a little tighter. That's right. We're using artists to scope our vision tighter to give you a better product. Click like and
Exactly.
subscribe.
We're learning both about the albums and the artists and about what the people are looking for, I guess. I mean, some of it is like I mean, obviously the big picture is we're trying to find new songs that we like, right? But but we're trying to shape this into something that is finding the balance between something that's both enjoyable for us to do, like, and also resonates with other people is the balance, right?
Right. I'll tell you something, you know, right quick, and we can kind of get over into Beguiled then briefly.
Hmm
What I've noticed is what works is really what we thought works. Good records.
Yeah.
When the songs are good, like look at the stuff that we've had that's hit. It's like it's not hasn't just been the band or the person that we've chose. No, it's been the quality of the song that's been there too for our biggest views too. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, the whole I think Tupac gets some of our best reactions when we do a Tupac song.
Yep.
Let's not have him with some of the best rap songs you're gonna find.
Right.
You
And
know,
Biggs
so
too. And
right,
Nas's. Yeah.
right. It's a cream rising to the top thing. So it's like, you know, even though we're doing these reactions, no, these records need to be quality, and it makes me worry about the quality. And here's why: Mike on According to Hip Hop
Mm.
made his list of the top 20 hip hop songs for each year.
Right.
But when you get to like 2000, like 8 or 9,
hmm
it like takes this nosedive
Mm.
of quality.
Yeah.
that has not been resurrected yet. It's like we were going. It's like all the records from like 2008 on would literally lose every year to the record previous. Like if you were like to put them against records from previous years,
Hmm.
they would like get blown out the water. There is something to be said about the quality tracking.
Yeah,
And
it seems like they haven't been as deep too. Like, I mean, you might get like three or four or five really good songs, but not like those three or four or five songs might make the top song from those years might make it sneak it into the top 20 in the mid 90s, but like it's like the scale is
here's how I look at it.
all right. Tell me.
Remember when the Fugees came out with the score in 1996?
Hmm.
Fuji La, Ready or Not, and Killing Me Softly, which each respectively have been the biggest song in each of the previous years in rap or R&B. Like each one of those records specifically.
Hmm.
Those records were on one album in 1996.
Right.
You
Yep.
know, like they're picking, it's like, hold on, first, second, third single. Those would be the biggest respective records for like 2023, 2022, and 2021 had they got released in those years. You
Yep.
get what I'm saying? And that's
And
what I mean.
Miseducation does the same thing too. Like,
Right. That's what I mean about the
yeah,
quality. Andrew, like if you were to line the singles up from that album, those would be the best songs that
for
you've
10
heard.
years, not 10 years in a row, but like several, yes.
No, it's about 8 singles on there, Andrew.
Yep.
So about
It's
eight.
a deep record. Yeah.
Yeah. And so no, there's not it's not quality being produced like that. Think about that. Like every single that got released on Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is better than whatever the song has been for the last 10 years in hip hop and R&B music.
Hmm.
Like unquestionably so.
Yeah.
With relative ease. So yeah,
And
there's a
that's not even me, like I'm not even doing high school bias either. Like that's I mean that's Miseducation was our senior year of high school, right? It was 98, late
yeah,
98. Yeah, so like
September.
so but that's not bias. Like those songs hold up regardless of where you put them. Now, 50 years ago, you could put out doo-wop in, 1970 and it would
But
still
I'm
hit.
no, this is what I mean about the quality suffering. So let's take Nothing Even Matters with D'Angelo, which is what I like to call an afterthought single from that
Yeah.
album. And there was no intention on ever giving that a video. It just was so good and so pleasing to people, and people were such fans of it that it made its way onto
Hmm.
radio. That was like so I heard Lost Ones, I heard Doo Zion, X Factor,
Everything
everything
is everything, everything. Yeah.
Everything is everything. So we're probably about 5 singles in before we hear Nothing Even Matters. So this is technically like the sixth. I
Hmm.
think Can't Take Off My Eyes Off You was getting played around
Hmm.
the same time too. It's like, so take that Nothing Even Matters with D'Angelo. Can you name a better R&B song than that the last 2 3 years that you've heard?
No.
Think about it. It was the sixth single off that album. It
Yeah.
would be literally the biggest song in R&B like any year lately, like bigger
Yeah.
than any, you know? So that's
Yeah.
Earth Equality that people feel is real.
Hmm.
And that is what changed the music business and made it go to more of a streaming thing, is that everybody was so busy making hit records and
Yeah.
sacrificing album quality.
Hmm.
The music business said, "Ha, we got you again." Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
It's
this quality suffered even more.
mhm. Yeah. So so it's interesting we're talking about in contrast to this, somebody Billy Corgan is the lead singer for Smashing Pumpkins and the guitarist is like a notorious curmudgeon kind of like he's kind of known to be a prickly personality. Um and if you don't aren't close with him to be not terribly pleasant. But he's also I mean his dad was a musician too and like a session musician and like the Smashing Pumpkins music is very like precise in a way that much of the music from the early 90s and mid 90s was not. It most of that music came out of like the punk where you're just kind of making noises. I mean, obviously you're doing better than that, but like it comes from that like ethos. And his is coming from like some like the technicians of the 70s, the ELO and that kind of band that are much more precise. And it's fascinating that we're talking about the disappearance of the album as a concept um in the modern world. And we're talking about two songs that come from like a 3 disc rock opera kind of that is clearly meant to be like one large piece of music too. So it's an interesting contrast. It is a very Billy Corgan thing to do, to say bleep
It's
all of y'all. I'm
right,
doing it like this way.
right,
Yeah,
right. Definitely, he's definitely got a lot of Frank Sinatra in him.
yeah. I think he would like that comparison, honestly. It echoes a couple things for me, like I said, like Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, Faith No More, those kind of. You guys, do you know Faith No More
Yes.
band? Okay. For those of you who don't know Faith No More, that was the original rock rap group. That was the precursor to like Limp Bizkit and Korn and all of them, and they were way better than Faith No More was way better than that. But the industrial feel to it comes from that. It also echoes like there was like a late '90s revival of this kind of sound. There were bands like called Orgy and Placebo and those kind of
Oh,
bands, Incubus. I mean, those
yep.
kind of bands, right? I mean, those also did this kind of sound as well too. Actually, Smashing Pumpkins um made an
Incubus.
album called Adore with songs called like Ava Adore, which is about that time period too that sounded very much like this. Um so it's hard to talk about for me like this as a piece of music because it's clearly both lyrically and musically meant to be a part of a larger whole, right? It's a movement in a longer piece instead
Right.
of like meant to be digested as a single, so to speak. I feel like I would be doing it a little bit of a disservice to be talking about it functioning as a single when it's meant to be like consumed as part of a larger piece. And because I can't talk about right now at least how it fits in the larger